We're going to talk a lot about the pandemic tonight, the costs, the lockdowns and what's happening in Victoria at the moment. As you've heard, the state opposition leader, the federal health minister and business leaders and experts in economics and mental health will join me to discuss the consequences. There is a lot to unpack. We all know Victoria was losing control of the virus and needed to get on top of it. But we've heard now from a number of highly qualified experts that the infection curve was turning down thanks to the stage 3 measures. In other words, the stage 4 lockdown and curfew were pretty much over the top, doing much more social and economic harm without delivering a commensurate benefit. Perhaps they'd pushed the curve down more quickly. We'll never know. And now the roadmap out, announced by Premier Daniel Andrews yesterday, leaves a curfew in place until the end of October. By that time, Victorians will have been forced to stay home overnight for 3 months. Why? Anyone's guess, I suppose. This is reckless. This is madness. It hurts people. And it all happens while the deaths continue to occur, not in the broader community, but almost exclusively in aged care facilities, where the precautions and focus should have been more intense much earlier. Anyway, the simplest way to point out how slow Victoria's recovery plan is, how overbearing the Andrews rules are, is the way the Prime Minister explained it today.
What I can't help but be struck by is that under the thresholds that have been set in that plan, Sydney would be under curfew now. Sydney doesn't need to be under curfew now. They have a tracing capability that can deal with outbreaks. That's why I say it's important that we work on building that tracing capability in Victoria to get it at a level that enables it to move in a more confident way than I think the plan that was announced yesterday set out.
Yeah, Victoria continues to get this wrong. As we know, the stuff it needed to be heavier-handed on, overseas quarantine, contact tracing, restricting infected people to their homes, quick testing and aged care precautions, those are the things it needed to be tough on, but it was slack with all of those. It failed with all of those. But where it shouldn't be so tough, where the medical advice suggests there's more pain than gain, Victoria has gone hard, keeping kids away from school, stopping people hanging around in the park, shutting businesses and putting everyone under a curfew. And if you want to see why Andrews is just wrong for this task, you just need to watch him in action, micromanaging, obsessing over all the wrong things.
The single person bubble will be basically means that a single person will be able to have another individual to their home so long as they are the only adult living there. The person who is supporting them doesn't need to be another person who lives on their own, but the person for whom the bubble is most important. This is directly listening to feedback from people for whom loneliness and that sense of isolation is a very real thing. They are able to have someone come from another household, much like the intimate partner arrangements which have operated now for months. The curfew does apply, but the 5 kilometre limit does not. So much like partners being able to spend time with each other and move freely between each other's properties, when you're together though, that for the purposes of the curfew say, that is essentially your home. So you need to be abiding by the rules that everybody else abides by when they are in their home.
I mean, don't you think this is nuts? The level of detail that the Premier's getting involved in micromanaging the lives of individual Victorians? This is the Premier of our second largest state, 6.5 million people, and he's detailing ridiculous little rules that no state government should be bothered with. It's local council stuff at best. This is the same bloke who said romantic partners couldn't visit each other earlier this year. He's put his state into a coma and he's talking about stuff like this.
There have been some questions in relation to skate parks, and I just wanted to confirm that outdoor skate parks won't be opening until the 3rd step in metropolitan Melbourne, that is. So again, subject to those case number trigger points and the 14-day average. That would be from the 26th of October, and of course that would be subject to public health advice. Outdoor gym equipment in parks will reopen in the 1st step from 11:59 p.m. on the 13th of September, so essentially next Sunday, and that is consistent with the other announcements we've made in terms of playgrounds.
Playgrounds? Skate parks? This bloke has lost the plot. How do people put up with this? Government involving themselves in this sort of micromanaging. It is absurd. Victoria needs someone who can look at the big picture, make the big calls about balancing the costs and benefits, the risks and the rewards of a virus, a health system, a society and an economy, not someone fussing over skate park rules. I'm amazed more people aren't calling this out. Andrews keeps saying there's no alternative to this approach, but that's obviously not true. That's just bunkum. It's all about balance, and an increasing array of experts, from epidemiologists to business leaders and the Prime Minister, suggest he has got the balance wrong. It took an FM radio host, former AFL great Luke Darcy, to express this frustration directly to Daniel Andrews this morning.
All we've got is the best thing we can do is lock you into home through to the 24th of November. Your kids can't go to school from 3 till 10. They're not going to be at school for almost an entire year. The devastation. So what is the cost of this policy? What is the real cost that people are hearing to you? And what is the real terms of the illness? And it's a debate I think, Premier, needs to be heard more loudly.
There are significant costs in any of the decisions you make with these things, Das, but the question is, what are our options? And the notion that it's one doctor working for the government, there's not. It's not. There are many, many people. In terms of the modelling, there's 1,000 different variables went into one of the most extensive modelling exercises our state's ever seen, not by one university but by two. The model wasn't run once, it was run multiple times. And what it says, and this is, this is pretty clear, you open up too early, you got a 63, 64% chance that we're locked down again by Christmas.
I'll lock you down, or I'll have to lock you down again. Now, the same advisors, the same bureaucrats and the same politicians that created this mess in Victoria are in charge of mapping their way out. So we get the blunt instrument, an ugly, painful, brutal, blunt instrument of shutting the place down, essentially because they don't have faith in their own testing regime, contact tracing processes and infection control. Imagine if Victorian authorities were as good at tracing coronavirus infections as they are at tracking down people who protest on social media against their rules.